Hey everybody, hope everybody's doing well. It's been a while since I put up a video, so I'm going to put up a video today and show you all about my Class D amplifier and the cabinet that I built for it. I think you'll find it interesting. What we're going to cover is the build, what I've done to build it, how it was built, and then we're going to go over how a speaker can be designed for an amplifier. We're going to focus specifically on the crossover, which is your crossover from your frequencies. Like, let's say from a regular speaker to a horn. We'll cover that, and we'll go into detail with some theory. And then we're going to close it out with a little demo with some royalty-free music. Did you hear that, YouTube? I got it off of YouTube, so it better not get a copyright hit. And we'll end it with me playing just a little bit of bass through it so you can hear it. I'll tell you right now, the camera's probably not going to do it any good justice, so you probably won't hear what I heard being here. But nevertheless, I want to at least show you what it sounds like. So if this is interesting to you, enjoy, sit back, and watch. And until then.
For generations, we Bushes have kept the family recipe for our baked beans a secret. Roll that beautiful bean footage.
Hey everybody, happy Sunday. Hope everybody's doing well. It's been a while since I put up a video, so I owe you guys an update on our amplifier. This is our Class D amp that we built with the tube preamp, the 12AX7. I want to walk you through what I've done here, show you around, and maybe explain a few things if you need to know it. And we'll go from there. I'll test it for you, let you hear it, that kind of thing. So, right here we're starting with our cabinet. This is an old Bell & Howell Filmo Sound speaker cabinet. I remember when I was a kid in school they had these things. They would take it and lay it on its face. There's little rubber feet here. And they would lay it flat down so the speaker would reverberate against the desk, and they would play the old projector films, you know, those really old grainy black and whites. So what I did with this one is I converted it to a bass cabinet. I have a 12-inch speaker in there capable of 450 watts, and you see I have a horn installed, and we put a crossover in there, and I'll show you that. So it's really beefy. The cabinet's made extremely well. I'm guessing that cabinet is probably 60 years old, 70 years old, I don't know. But I'll walk you through it, show you what we did to it. And then on top, we have our amplifier. And I've showed you this before. So this is our amp. We'll just take a walk around. So here's our controls. Here's our volume, treble, mid, and bass right here. And if you look on top, we have two vent holes. One vent hole is right here, which is right over the chassis, the two chassis that I have for the power supply and the 12AX7. And this one here is right over the amplifier board, the Class D amplifier board. So the theory is that when this fan operates and the fan blows out, it's going to pull air in across this vent and just keep everything nice and cool in there. It'll keep that tube cool, and it'll keep the heat sink on the amplifier cool. And then here we have a blue indicator light. And let me flip it around and I'll show you the back. There's really nothing on this side except for the output jack. And this is the output jack that goes to the speaker cabinet. So let me flip it around and we'll show you what the back looks like. Okay, here's the back of the amp. And you'll see the back of the amp really simple. We have a combination switch, fuse, and power connector. Then we have a number of screws in here which hold things in, which you'll see shortly when I open this up. So let me get this cabinet off the bench. We'll throw this up there and we'll take a look inside. Okay, let's pop up the top and see what we got going on in here. So it's quite busy in there. So let's start over here in this corner. This is our power supply for our preamp section. So we have our transformer. Underneath here we basically are converting the high power of the transformer and the filament to go to this chassis, which we'll explain in a moment. We have a pair of airline connectors here, screw-down airline connectors that connect the two chassis together. And of course we're bringing ground through the entire configuration here from the line cord. So we come over here. This is our preamp board, and you saw this in a previous video. We have our 12AX7 tube here, and we have a wire coming out. Right, this is our signal coming in right here in the front of the amp, and our signal comes in, gets processed, and then comes out this cable and comes down here to a Class D amplifier. I've explained this to you, or previously, what a Class D amplifier is. So we have it here connected, nice and neat. Everything is bolted down securely to the chassis, to the case I should say. And then we have a wire here going to our speaker output. Really simple. Over here, this is where the power is for the Class D amp. This is a 55 volt switching power supply. So basically we have our 110 coming in, and we have 55 volts coming out here going to the amplifier board. All mounted again. And then what you see here, let's see if we can swing this up a little bit. There's our fan. Let's cover that first. Okay. And there's our indicator light that I showed you. So what we have here is a bunch of terminal blocks. So we have a terminal block here with a cover, like so. We have another terminal block here, and another terminal block here. And this is our power switch coming in. So our power comes in, goes to this terminal block, comes up here, goes to the fan and the light, then comes across here and feeds into this power supply, and then ultimately goes into this chassis. Everything is protected. You're not supposed to have the cover open anyway, but everything is fairly connected. The only thing that I was a little bit worried about was this wire opening and closing the case, but theoretically the case should not be opened that much, so I'm not going to worry about it. I did put a twist in the wire there to make it a little bit stronger. But that's basically what we have going on here. So again, let me show you this. The theory here is that the airflow gets pulled here, comes across, then also gets pulled in here. So it keeps these two sections nice and cool, and then it goes up through the fan, which is right around here when the cover's closed. So that's the configuration. There's really not much to it. Let's talk about cost. This board here was, I think, $19. Power supply, 55 volt from China. This amplifier board was $19, I think, as well. So I've got 40 involved here. These two chassis, I did have to order these. They were like $6 each, so really inexpensive. I had the tube and the board and the components, and the only thing I had to order was this transformer, which was really inexpensive. And the fan I actually had. So what we're looking at here is really, really minimal from a cost perspective. And of course, I bought the case. The case was 20 bucks, right? Metal case. So that's what we're looking at here. So what I want to do now is I want to show you the speaker cabinet, and then we'll do a little demo of the board itself, of the amp itself. So we'll be right back. Okay, let's start around the front here. So here's the front of the cabinet. There's the horn that I told you about. You'll see the inside of that in a moment. We come around the side. Nothing going on there. Over here we have a couple of latches that holds the back cover on. There's a top. Not much going on there. Let's flip it around. This is where all the fun is. So here's the back of our cabinet. So here's the speaker in. This goes from the amplifier case that I showed you in there. And then simply here we have a 100 ohm wire wound rheostat. And this is going to be our crossover. And I'll explain how a crossover works. It's something I actually learned during this. I had no idea how it worked or what it was supposed to do, but I do now. Let's pop the back open. And you'll see what we have going on here. First of all, we have a really beefy speaker. It's an Eminence Professional Series. And again, I told you this is capable of handling 450 watts. Of course, I'm never going to pump that here, but we're capable of doing it. And we have a wire here that goes to this. This is the jack I showed you, right? This is the speaker in jack right here. And it goes off here, and I'll explain that in a moment. And then down here, we have our horn speaker. And our horn speaker is going to be where we get some of the mids and highs when we play through the amp. And there's a wire that runs back here. And we'll talk about this back panel now. So you'll see I have two wires here that go to the back panel. One is for the main speaker connection, and one is for the horn. So let's start here. Here's our speaker input jack. One side goes to the speaker, one side comes around here and goes to this 100 ohm wire wound rheostat that I told you about, which is our crossover. And this allows you to adjust the amount of crossover that you have. And it goes here, and I'm waiting for one piece here. I'm waiting for a pair of 25 microfarad 50 volt capacitors, which will get wired into this terminal strip and that will make this complete. So I can't do that yet, but for testing purposes, I can tack in a pair of 22s just to show you. So it goes through on the positive side of the speaker. It goes through a pair of 25 microfarad caps, and I'll show you the diagram of how it works. And then simply feeds the tweeter. All right. So the bass speaker is always working. There's nothing in the way. There's no controls. It's just straight through. The horn, on the other hand, is adjustable with this rheostat and through these caps. So that's the speaker, and it's going to be really, really good. I played it without the horn, and it sounds really, really good. It's very, very punchy. I mean, it's a beefy speaker. All right, it's pretty heavy. I think it was about 20 pounds, 25 pounds. So it's pretty good, and it's made in the USA. Look at that. You don't see that anymore. I don't know why this thing just went upside down. So there it is, made in the USA. So let's go through the diagram, and I'll show you how the crossover works. Okay, let's talk about our speaker configuration and how it works and how a crossover works and how this amp was designed. So a lot of it has to do with personal preference. So I prefer a bass to sound a little more on the treble side, a little higher in frequency. Of course, it has to have that punch, but I like to have a lot of clear highs. It's just the way I like it to sound. Every player is different. So when you design something, you have to keep that in mind. And the one thing that I never really paid attention to is when you buy a speaker, any speaker, or at least a good speaker, it should come with a performance chart like this. And I never really understood what it meant, but now I do, and I'm going to explain it to you. So this is the performance chart for our bass speaker. This is the one that's capable of 450 watts. And you'll see here that you have dBs up here on the side. It goes from 65 to 105 dBs. And then you have your frequencies along the bottom. So it goes from 20 hertz to 50 to 100 to 200, 500, 1K, 2K, 5K, 10K, and 20K. And the thing that's important to note on this particular speaker that we're looking at here, you'll see at the 20K range, which is very low, the response is really not very good, right? It's fairly low from a dB perspective. But as you start to rise, when you get up here to about 100, is really when this thing starts to kick in. Okay, so you'll get sound along the way, but this is where you're kind of the sweet spot, I guess, is what we're looking for. And you'll see as we come along, we kind of dip down a little bit in the 300 hertz range, and we pick up again around 500. We dip down a little bit more. When we get to 1K, we're kind of holding steady or on a rise, and you'll see that the peak is 2K right here. So this is the peak. This is when we can't get any more out of the speaker, right? When you've got 2K going through there, it's not going to produce anything higher than that, right? So on the sound spectrum, 2K is somewhere in the mid range, probably on the mid, right around there somewhere. So this is as good as it gets. So what happens to the higher tones? For example, if you look at a drum set has a bass drum, which is, low, but there's also cymbals, which are very high, right? Very high frequencies. So how do you get all of that in one place, right? This speaker is not going to produce the highs. So let's just make a note here that this is around the 2K mark, okay? So now let's look at the performance chart for our tweeter. This is the horn that I showed you. So you'll see we have the same chart here, the dBs up to 108 down to 92, and you'll see right here that this chart starts at 2K. Okay? So as soon as you cross that magical line of 2K, you'll see we go up a little bit, we come back down, and then we really spike up somewhere around 2.5K, around there somewhere, and we go up to 106 decibels. So this is where our highs will come in. Now mind you, when your highs are playing here, the low end is still playing on the other speaker. And you'll see we do a significant drop off right around 3K, and then we pick up again, and we kind of dive down again to 4.5K, and we kind of straddle along here, and around 8K is when it picks up again and picks up really high frequency. So this thing at 10K is at max performance, and then you'll see it drops off. Okay? So if we put these two charts together, let's kind of plot what our speaker configuration looks like. So we're going to use this this black pen here, and you'll see I have the dB section filled in here, and I have hertz going from 20 to 20K. So let's take a look and see where our, first of all, this is going to be our overall sound spectrum for both the speaker and the horn. Okay? So we start at 70, and let's see where we go here. Let's start at 2K because we know that that's going to be our break-off point. So we're going to start at 2K, and it's going to be right around here. And we know that our chart looks something like this. All right, so that's our bass speaker. Then we're going to take our horn, and I'm going to use a different color for the horn. And what you're going to see here for the horn is it's going to go up like this, comes down a little bit, goes up, comes down, goes up like this, and around 10K it shoots up and it tails off. All right, so what we're looking at here is a fairly consistent spectrum. So here's our low end, here's our mid and our high end. That looks a lot better than this, which just tails off and does nothing. So we're going to have a fairly consistent sound going through this thing, and we're going to be able to bring those highs into the equation. Now the question is, how do you set up a crossover? Well, it's really simple once you know how to do it. So here's our existing speaker right here, and here's the horn. Sorry about that. And here's the horn. So if you remember, on the back of our amp we had the speaker jack. On the back of the cabinet, I should say, we had the speaker jack. So we have a pair of wires that go right to the speaker, all right? No interruption there. And then we branch off and we come down here and we go one side to the tweeter. The other side goes through that 100 ohm wire wound rheostat that we had, and it goes through a pair of capacitors. And here they're listed as C1 and C2, and they're 25 microfarads at 40 volts. Basically, we're putting them in a configuration where they're going to become non-polarized. Okay? And there's a chart here that shows you what you need to do. So if we look at the frequency chart, we know we're running an 8 ohm speaker right here. And we know that our drop-off is 2000 or 2K. Okay? So if we come over here, you'll see that we need an effective capacitance of 13 microfarads in order to make that crossover work for 2K. So basically, if we take a 25 and a 25 and we put them in this configuration with the plus, let's just put boxes around these, plus and minus and minus. If we put them in this configuration, we're going to get half of the value. Right? So half of 25 is about 12.5 microfarad. That's exactly what we need on this chart, 13. It's as close as we're going to get. So this will effectively give us a cutoff to go right here. This is the rheostat right here. This is going to give us our cutoff so that we go to the horn and the tweeter. That's really, it's that simple. That's how it works. All my life I've heard about crossovers and never knew what it meant, and now I do. And now I also know how it's tunable. Now if I had a 4 ohm speaker, it would be a little bit different, right? I would have to have a pair of 50s, 50 microfarad caps, and I would get half that value, and that would be my crossover for a 4 ohm speaker. So the ohm of the speaker, or the impedance, is very, very important when you're designing a crossover. We know that my amp is going to be a 8 ohm cabinet. Okay? So I hope that makes some sense. So that's how this cabinet's going to look. This is how it's going to work. And now what we're going to do is we're going to tack in a pair of 22s. Okay? I don't have the 25s yet. So that's going to give us an effective capacitance of about 11. And if we look at our chart here, It's probably going to alter the crossover just a little bit. If I have 5,000, I'm sorry, my 8 ohm capacitance is 10 microfarads here. That would give me a crossover at 5,000. It's not going to be exactly what we were looking for, but for a demonstration purpose, it'll be fine. So let me go tack in those 22s, and I'll come back and show you what it looks like and sounds like. Okay, you'll see I have a pair of 22s here just tacked in. I don't want to use the terminal strip because I want to save that for the real caps. So it's just tacked in along the path, just the same as the diagram that I showed you. So let's button this up and see if we can get some sound out of it. Okay, we've got our caps put in. We're going to play some royalty-free music on YouTube. We'll see if I get flagged. So right now I've got the control in the back for the tweeter about halfway. Let's start from the thing you can't feel here is the bass, but it's pumping. I can feel it. It's shaking the floor. I hope you heard that bass because that was pretty good. So this sounds really good. Now remember, I have the 22 microfarad caps in there, so the crossover is not exactly where we want it. It's going to be even better when I get the real caps in there. So let's take this apart and we'll wrap up. But you can hear we've got a really nice speaker cabinet, and the amplifier, just to give you a frame of reference of how much power this thing has, I only had the volume on 2.5 at most. And it's probably hard to tell from the camera, but it was pretty loud. So we've got plenty of headroom in this amp for bass, and maybe what we'll do is we'll just play a little bass through it now and show you that. So let me set that up. Okay, we're going to play a little bit of bass here. I have the back of the cabinet open just slightly because I have that capacitor stuff in there and it's rattling a little bit. So let's just play a couple of riffs here and then we'll wrap up. Adjust our rheostat a little bit, see if it's different. I can hear a lot more highs. I'm really not sure if you can hear this, honestly, but I hear a lot more highs. So when I go up on the neck, that's where the tweeter kicks in. let's wrap it up. Okay, so here we are. You have our amp. So what we're going to do in a future video, probably an odds and sods video, I'm actually going to hook the amplifier up to the scope and let you see what it looks like. And I want to try to demonstrate the pulse width of the amp, how that works for you. I know I've explained it a couple of times, but I want to show you. So I'm not going to do it in this video because this would be too long. But there's a bird for sale if anybody wants it. But we're going to do that in a future video, and I want to show you how it works. And that's going to be the plan there. Here's our schematic for the preamp section. If anybody wants a copy of it, it's pretty simple. It's basically a Fender type layout. And it's really simple. I can send it to anybody that wants it. I have a PDF. And I want to give a special thank you to Brendan. Brendan is the guy that is really the brains behind a lot of my projects. Brendan is a really great guy. You've heard, if you know, for those of you that follow John from Arkansas and Old 64 Goat, you've heard them talk about Brendan. And the man just has a wealth of knowledge about so many things, whether it be automobiles, TVs, radios, amplifiers, sound. Guy just knows so much, and the best thing about it is he's very willing to help and share. Never asks for anything, just always there to help. And I fully appreciate Brendan and everything he does for me. He and I have been collaborating on a couple of projects now, and it's a lot of fun actually. He has the concept, he gives me the concepts, and I kind of work through it and figure out how it works and build it. And trust me, he's always there in the background helping. What we're going to work on next is a guitar pedal or a bass pedal. So we're already working on that. We're going to use some op amps, some 741 op amps, and we're gonna build a pedal and put it into a small little metal case and that kind of thing. So we're going to breadboard it first. And again, I like when I play bass, I like it to be a very trebly, gritty type feel, and this pedal should hopefully achieve that. So a special shout out to Brendan. Thank you so much, Brendan. I appreciate everything you did, and you've helped me to build an amazing amp that I'm going to be using every week. So I'm going to get put to use. I didn't build it for nothing. It's going to be my practice amp for one of my bands. I'm in 2 bands. This will be one of the practice amps for one band. Currently using a PV30, which is a guitar amp. I've been using it for like 3 years. So now we're going to have a proper bass amp that we use. All right, that's it, everybody. I hope everybody has a great Sunday. Stay safe. We all know what that means, and hang in there. Take care, guys.